I'm back, ladies and gentlemen,
Oh, yeah.
boys and girls, to the Cold War episode 284. Ray, before we get started, I did promise to share with you my story of the week.
Please.
So, Tuesday night, about midnight, I go to bed, lie down, reading. I start getting these sharp stabbing pains in the left side of my rib cage.
Right.
Just left of my nipple, which you know so well.
Right.
And I was like, ooh, that's not good.
No, not a good way.
I say, which side's my heart on again? Oh, yeah, that side. Oh. So I waited a minute or two and it didn't go away. So I went downstairs and I jumped on ChatGPT and I said, these stabbing pains in my heart. What should I do? And it was like, don't fuck around. Either call 000, which is our version of 911 here, or go to the emergency room. So I did neither of those, but I did wake Chrissy up and say, hey, I got this thing. So we went downstairs and I called 13 Health, which is like phone doctor, phone medical service. You get talk to a nurse.
Telemedicine. Right? Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's not emergency, I need an ambulance, because I'm like 99.9% sure this is nothing.
Right.
Because I know, I cannot die. I was promised that by the devil at the crossroads. And secondly,
right,
my vitals are good. You know, I saw my cardiologist a year ago, and my GP, and my bloods are great, and everything's great.
Yeah, great.
But at our age, you know, you don't want to fuck around and find out, right? So I call 13 Health, which isn't the emergency, but it's the thing. And I talked to this nurse for 15 minutes. She asked me a bunch of questions. And then she goes, how's it now? And I'm like, it's fine, but I'm sitting up. Should I lie down and test it? She goes, yeah, lie down. So I lay down and the pains immediately come back.
Right.
She goes, yeah, you should go to an emergency room straight away.
Shit.
So this is about 20 past 12, middle of the night. I jump in the car. I drive to the nearest hospital. Go to the it's about 10 minutes away. Go to the emergency room. Sit there for 4 hours. I mean, I see a nurse in the triage. I see the triage nurse, and I'm honest. Like she goes, and I'm like, listen, it's probably nothing.
Right.
I'm fit. I'm healthy. No other symptoms. No pain in my not like a horse sitting on my chest.
Right.
No pains down my arm. Is your arm sore? Yeah, my arm's sore, but I did 2 hours of kung fu tonight.
So, take that.
So I think my arm is sore from that.
It's legit.
Not from anything else. So like, I'm not like going, oh my God, I'm about to die. So I don't mind that I have to wait when we have guys coming in with ODs and there's car accidents and there's all the other shit. And it's public health, public emergency room for people, you know, in the US, this is called public health care where you get looked after and but as part of that, you know, you're prepared to take your turn, right?
Yes.
Triage is triage for a reason. The people that need the help the first get the help the first. I'm happy to sit and wait because I know it's probably not. I mean, it could be wrong, but probably not an emergency.
Right.
4 hours I'm sitting in the waiting room. About 4:30 in the morning, somebody collects me. They take me out the back, put me on an ECG, take my blood, do an X-ray. I'm in a bed in a room for 2 hours. 3 hours.
Wow.
Until they finally say, a couple of doctors come in and out. They finally go, yeah, you're fine.
We can't
go home.
Find anything. Thanks, but better safe than sorry.
You probably just tweaked a muscle, pulled something. But when I was sitting in the waiting room, our old friend from Oklahoma, Jason Palmer, long-term fan of the shows, texted me. I hadn't heard from him for a month or two. He goes, hey, man, what's going on? How are things? Our country's fucked. I was like, yeah, I know. I said, well, funny you should reach out because I'm sitting in the emergency room. I got these pains in the side of my chest kind of thing. I said, it's probably nothing. But if you don't hear back from me, it means I won and I beat Ray to the finish line. Tell him I said I won.
Suck it, Ray. Suck it. Yeah.
And then I turned my phone off and I'd taken a Phenergan, like an antihistamine before I went to bed, which helps me sleep at night.
Right.
And so I'm drowsy as fuck. I'm trying to sleep in the waiting room, but you can't because there's people screaming and sirens and all the shit going on. And so Jason does send me a text back, but I don't reply. And then the next day, I get home at 8 o'clock in the morning. I nap. I get up. I work. I nap. I work. I nap. Go to Kung Fu. I don't reply to him until the next day. Dude's texting me like, dude, are you alive? Holy fuck.
Right.
He's texting Chrissy.
Right.
Like, is Cameron alive?
Yeah.
Like, oh, shit, sorry, man. Yeah, I'm fine. It was all good. But it was sweet of him to be checking in on me.
Yes. He was going to audition.
So that was my story for the week. You know, it was a whole bunch of fucking nothing.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, the one time at our age you don't take it seriously is you probably die.
Exactly.
So I have a responsibility to you.
Right.
And Chrissy and Fox and the twins. But to you mostly, that I take care of myself. Because without me, what are you going to do?
I don't even want to.
What are you going to do? Who are you going to talk to?
Well, I guess I could do puppets.
Right? Who are you going to talk
I could do
to?
a Cam puppet, and I could do a Ray puppet, and I can. That's all I've got.
Yeah.
That's sad. Anyway,
it'd be like your sex life.
Imaginary.
Last time on the Cold War show,
yes,
we're talking about Cuba.
Yeah.
Last time on the show, we were talking about after the Spanish-American War, the U.S. occupied Cuba, and they forced elections, but they tried to engineer it in a way that the party that won would be pro the island, the country becoming part of the United States.
Yes.
And instead, a party won that chose independence.
Right. Close. It was close.
The U.S. was like, fuck all y'all, and introduced the Platt Amendment in the United States, which basically said, yeah, we're going to let Cuba be independent, except we're going to run its military and its economy and call it an independent nation.
Right.
But we're going to reserve the right to intervene with our military whenever we don't like where it's going.
Right. You can be free, independent every leap year. Other than that, we will be ready to storm down and kick open the door and do what we have to do. And as more American businesses get involved, the Americans are more inclined to come and make sure their investors are happy and safe and snug in their beds at night.
Call it free-ish.
Oh.
You can be free-ish.
Free light.
Democrat-ish.
Right. Tish. Yeah. And we have guns-ish galore. So call us if you need us. Yeah.
The first elected president of the pseudo-republic of Cuba was Tomás Estrada Palma.
Oh, yeah.
He's a Cuban-born American citizen, had naturalized U.S. citizenship, and he's got kind of a great story, this guy. His maternal grandfather, Don Tomás de Palma, was a rich landowner.
The best kind.
And, we'll get into Estrada's story more in a second, but for the next 60 years, the Cuban experience was one of endless violence, civil wars, American intervention, military revolts, gangsterism. It was just a clusterfuck. And I think, and the reason why, I love to tell these sort of behind the story kind of stuff is I suspect that a lot of people in the West who don't know much about the history of Cuba have this vague idea, as I did when I was in my early 20s and I wasn't paying attention. I'd heard of Fidel Castro. He was still around, obviously, at the time.
Right.
But I had this perception that this guy just came out of nowhere and dictator, took over Cuba, fuck y'all, this is my country now.
Right.
Starts causing problems everywhere, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping people will get at this is the backstory, like we told the backstory of Ho Chi Minh, and his fucking journey to try and get independence for his people in Vietnam.
Right.
It's the same thing here. Like Cuba was a clusterfuck until Castro came along and said, "This ends here, right? It ends here. It ends now. It's Cuba for the Cubans. Get the fuck out of my country.
Right.
We're going to run it our way." So Estrada was elected in 1901. He was elected unopposed.
Mhm.
By the way, in that 60 years of complete clusterfuckery,
Right.
the country also had spectacular economic growth and terrific prosperity for a very small selection of people, mostly white landowners.
Yeah.
Did very, very well in the next 60 years. Everyone else was fucked, but the landowners did very well.
Can we agree?
So Estrada
that their
gets elected
food-
unopposed. How do you get what? Yeah, what?
Just real quick, no matter good times, bad times, it's Cuba, beautiful women, good food. That was pretty much a steady trajectory. Everything else is all over the place. I just wanted that on the record, if I may. That's it.
Good times, bad times, things aren't really clear. I don't even know the rest of that song.
I didn't know it was.
Yeah,
a
that's
song.
good. Yeah, Michael Jackson fits in everything. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
So there were two political parties at the time, Ray. The Republicans,
Right.
who were mostly conservative and wanted national autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
make Cuba great again, I think was their motto, headed by a guy called Jose Miguel Gomez,
Right.
who's a revolutionary, and the National Liberals, who were a populist sort of party, wanted Cuba to go towards local autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was headed by a guy called Alfredo Zayas, also a revolutionary, but not really a military guy.
Right.
He had been part of the revolution, but not really he was more of a philosopher.
Sure. Yeah.
Philosopher of Cuba.
Quartered. Yeah. Armchair.
And but both parties supported Estrada
Right.
to be president. Two political parties in an election,
Yep.
both going,
Yeah.
let's make this guy president.
We'll meet here. We'll meet at Estrada Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's kind of weird. Why don't you explain that to people?
Explain what exactly, because I need you to explain to me so I can explain it to them.
Two political parties,
Yeah.
both with the same candidate
Right.
to be president.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, I know that, and here's the thing that you were touching on a second ago. When these guys, now that they're in charge of their own country, what do they know? They know what they saw before them. And what they saw before them was Spain. And Spain, whoever had the position who was ruling Cuba technically for Spain, pretty much did what everybody else does. They were doing it for personal enrichment. So for what I took from this was that this guy Estrada was acceptable for both parties, because there was another guy named Masso who would have been a lot more popular with the regular Cubans, but and I don't want to give anything away, but let's just say General Wood made it sure he did not win. I don't want to cast aspersions, but he fucking rigged the system. But so I, as far as I could tell, Estrada was he was just acceptable to both sides, and he would toe the line. He would make the Americans happy. The Americans would continue to invest. And because we are talking about the elites, it doesn't matter that it's from two different parties. They're still going to benefit in a general way as the Americans bring more cash ashore. That's the best I can do.
Yeah, I think you're right. But he was also, I think most importantly, is that Estrada was acceptable to the Americans.
Good point. Good point.
Because you remember, part of the deal that the Americans made with the Cubans is, we'll let you have elections, we'll let you have quasi-independence, but you have to do it in a way that we're happy with.
Right.
You have to elect a government that is acceptable to the US.
Yeah.
And the two major political parties figured that the US really wanted Estrada. Now, Estrada was one of the leaders of the revolution along with Martí. And after Martí died, he was really the guy. He'd sort of been the backbone of the revolution against the Spanish.
Yeah.
And he was sort of the best candidate, the one that was a responsible figure in the eyes of the U.S. occupation.
Yes.
And so he was sort of he was a U.S. citizen, as I said before, and he'd lived and worked and was actually at the time of this election living in New York.
Right.
He didn't even go to Cuba for the election.
No.
Didn't campaign.
No.
He was
Oh,
in New York.
am I elected?
Just chilling.
Yeah. Drinking espresso.
It's always the best way to become president of a country is you don't even have to be there at the time.
You're in Soho,
You
just chilling. Yeah.
just chilling. Yeah. Ideally, you want to be made president of multiple countries
That would-
at the same. Have your choice.
Right.
It's like dating.
Yes.
You know,
like
you
Love
don't want
Island.
to pick one woman and try and
Right.
become the president of her.
I got
You want to have a range of women
or islands.
and go,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm the fussy. I can be president of any of
Who
you.
wants me more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was just chilling, and he was a friend to America, friend to Wall Street, and so the major political parties in Cuba knew they could see the writing. You know, they knew what was up.
Yeah.
They know what is up, but they don't know up is up. Something like that. It's a Fatboy Slim song from the fucking mid-90s for you kids out there.
I'll take your word for it.
He knows what is up, but he don't know what is up. No, something I can't remember.
Something's
I
up.
was singing at Kung Fu last night, but no, I can't remember.
Okay.
So on December 31st, 1901, Estrada Palma was elected president. Now, going back a bit, he'd already been president once before,
Right.
if you read this, but in 1876, he was made the provisional president of Cuba during the Civil War. He got arrested by the Spanish,
Yeah.
and they said,
Go.
"Who are you?"
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm the president of Cuba."
Really?
And they were like,
really?
"Oh, you're a funny guy. Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm the president of Cuba." That's all he said.
Right.
So they arrested him and eventually sent him to the US in exile. He became a school teacher
Right.
in New York City and worked with Martí to build support for a political revolution in Cuba, which then ran for the next 25 odd years.
Yeah. But he's not exactly going to sacrifice himself for the good of the average Cuban person, which the Americans know, which those two political parties in Cuba know, like you said. That makes him quite acceptable to the right people or the white people. Same thing. We'll get to that later, but he's acceptable to the right people.
Mormons like to say white and delightsome. And his government was mostly for the white and delightsome part of the population.
Right.
And continued to sell off land and assets to Americans. Now, I found this interesting. A lot of Cubans had migrated to the US in the previous decades during the Civil Wars and just the Spanish occupation. It wasn't just I think people sometimes have this idea that Cubans going to America or the United States was a thing that happened only after Castro's revolution, but it had been going on for a century before Castro. It's just over there. Let's just jump on a boat and go over there and do that thing.
Yeah.
But then a lot of them were coming back. A lot of them had gone to America, made some money, had made friends with Americans that had money, and then when there was this after the revolution and the US was running Cuba, a lot of those people started coming back with their American money.
Yes.
And started buying up stuff. But most of the people that were coming back were, or coming over to Cuba to buy stuff, were Americans and or, Spanish that were still there from the occupation.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly white people buying up the land.
Right.